Lately, I feel like I've been doing a lot of waiting. Waiting for the new Battle Pass in Enlisted, waiting for new Battle Pass weapons to come along with it, waiting for the next big event to start, because, I feel like we have them, every other month. Waiting for the WoW expansion to drop. Yeah, I posted a video like a week ago, but traditionally I've been a pretty big WoW player, so I'm looking forward to the War Within coming out. But what I have today is a little something that I've been up to lately, just, trying to pass the time. And that is Empire Total War. But it's not vanilla Empire Total War. It's Empire Total War 2, which is a mod for Empire Total War that, I don't know, updates it a little bit. I'm still exploring some of the features. So, I'm sure many of you are familiar, at least in name, with the Total War franchise. It's been around for, 20, 25 years now, in various forms. And it's basically a military strategy game. It has like a campaign map where you manage your country, you manage some advisors, you manage some economics. It's not super in-depth, it's not quite to the point of like a Paradox game. But what's different versus other games, in most RTS games, you control a battle. And they fall into a number of different categories. Some of them have building, some of them don't. But generally that's where RTS ends. And then when it comes to 4X, usually it's all more big brain, like, overarching macro concepts. And sometimes there's microing involved, but a lot of the time there isn't as much micromanagement. There's more just big picture. So think like Hearts of Iron, right? Or Europa Universalis. But generally that's where they stay. They stay in their own purview. Total War is cool because it takes and it merges the two. So you have kind of a simplified version of both. So you don't have any sort of base building or economy in the battle. You just have the troops that you have available, they go, and they fight. And then likewise, when you're on your campaign map, you don't quite have the same depth of mechanics as you'd find in like a 4X game. But where you trade off those assets of both games, what you pick up is a merger between both, where you get to actually take command and fight your battles, and at the same time, you get to also run your nation. And it's been a very successful format. I mean, obviously they're still making games, it's still around, although they've made some questionable decisions in the last few. But this mod in particular, like I said, I'm still exploring all of the features, but it at least allows you to play as a lot of other nations that traditionally you can't play as in the game. It brings in an expanded unit roster. It tweaks a lot of little things, and there's a lot of little things you can turn on and turn off. Like I said, I'm still very new to the mod. This is like my first playthrough with it. The main reason, though, why I got the mod is because I wanted to see if I could get the multiplayer campaign to work, because Empire does not have a co-op campaign, whereas Napoleon does, Rome 2 does, Shogun does, like all of the future ones more or less do. And it does have that with this mod. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem very stable. My friend and I tried to run a campaign the other night, and we just could not get it to stay running. It kept crashing every few turns. But for a single player setting, it's very stable. And I've had a pretty good time with it. So what you're going to see in this battle, I've been playing a campaign as Prussia. Now, Prussia starts with like Königsberg, which now it's Kaliningrad, the Russian enclave in Europe. The Germans lost it after World War II. It became a Russian territory. You get the idea. But at this point in time, it's basically the core of Prussia. That and I think we have like Brandenburg or Berlin, something like that. But those are like my two starting regions. which, you know, it's a little bit inconvenient because we have like Poland, Lithuania right there, we have Austria right below us, Saxony right next to us, United Provinces are almost right next door, we have Denmark, we have Sweden right above us. So far, though, this has been a pretty good campaign. I've made friends with Russia and with Poland, Lithuania, and so I took out Sweden and Denmark. Denmark technically still exists. They're just off on an island. I think they're out on like Iceland now. But I took all of Norway and Denmark from them. And so my territory at this point basically stretches from Sweden to Baghdad. But the battle in particular that we're going to be looking at is me fighting against the Austrians. And basically, the way that I looked at it, there were a bunch of smaller principality, city-state, smaller countries around me that I wanted to consolidate, and a lot of them had alliances with the Austrians, but the Austrians were also already at war with the Ottomans and with my ally Poland and Lithuania. So I figured, since my war with the Swedes and Denmark was coming to a close, it'd be a perfect opportunity for me to come in and sweep them from behind. Worked out perfectly. We picked up some of the city-states around us. Some of them we're still friends with. I can't remember which exact individual ones I took over, but I'm pretty sure we're friends with Hanover. I'm pretty sure we took over Bavaria. I think we took Wittenberg. Saxony is one of our friends, which initially I thought that they were Austrian because their flags are so similar, but they're not. I took Austria, and I've been fighting my way south through the Ottomans, which is why I control everything down to Baghdad, and I'm just now mopping up with the Ottomans. We're relatively friendly with the Safavids, but I could see them potentially becoming an enemy, because I am actually at war with the Martha Confederacy. They're down in India, and being Prussia, I don't exactly have this world-renowned navy. So I have a few ships. I could put my people on ships and sail them around Europe, down around Africa to India, but I think it's probably going to be smarter for me to finish up with the Ottomans, take Cairo, and then we'll have a border with Spain, so I'll probably have to keep like a border force there just in case something heats up with France and Spain. And then with that, I'll probably be able to move my 3 main armies that have been operating in the region down into Safavid territory, take the Safavids, move them into the Mughal territory, take the Mughals, and then move them down and fight the Martha Confederacy. Unless, either of those 2 countries want to join my, Grand Alliance. I have, like I said, Poland, Lithuania, and Russia with me, and I have most of the remaining city-states in Europe with me. I think we have Venice, Hamburg, Saxony. Genoa hates me. We've just got a series of other little city-states and whatnot that are friends with us. We have Russia. But yeah, that's basically the state of the overarching campaign. I don't have any colonial holdings in the New World, and Britain, France, and Spain are all still kicking around. I've been holding a couple of armies up near Bavaria just in case something heats up with France, but I don't know. They probably have their hands full with the British or fighting in the New World, not sure which. Regardless, I'm probably going to stop yapping pretty soon, but you can enjoy the battle. My army here is one of my more elite armies. These are my elite grenadiers. All of the guys with the black coats are elite grenadiers. The guys with the red coats are, I believe, they're not normal line musketeers. They're like an upgraded line musketeer. They're like a specific named battalion. I want to say they're like I think they start with a K. And then we just have like provincial cavalry and demi cannons. Nothing too special. The nice thing with this mod, demi-cannons are the base cannons normally in the game, and they're not mobile. In this mod, they are mobile. Not that I really make use of that, it's nice that they're horse-drawn. The thing is, horse-drawn cannons, unless they're small caliber, are usually so slow that it's not really worth moving them around. But they do get access to canister shot, and that's the main reason why I have them. They're such an equalizer. But this is actually the first battle that I've really gotten to try to use my Grenadiers' grenades themselves. And they're pretty cool. Definitely a morale shock, if nothing else. But the army itself could probably use some work. I'd prefer to have some fancier cavalry, ideally more shock-based cavalry. Although I've been playing around a lot lately with dragoons and hussars that have like pistols, which, depending on who I'm fighting, they can be really good at harassing enemy melee infantry, which this is sort of at the end of the pike and shot era. So there are still pikemen being fielded by some of the European armies, but likewise, when you go down and you fight against the Ottomans like I have, they actually have a huge roster of melee troops in addition to like janissaries and other musket-armed soldiers. So, because they have so many melee infantry, having ranged cavalry can be extremely powerful because you can kind of skirmish with them. Now, Empire's been around since like 2009 or 10, so it's a pretty old Total War game, and some of the more modern features like skirmishing, it exists, it just doesn't work as well, it's less responsive. So it can be difficult to manually control them to get them to skirmish the way I want to, especially because in Empire they like to line up before they shoot, you know, because line battles, but they don't really have like a 360-degree fire arc on the cavalry. It's dependent on where they're facing, so it makes it sometimes difficult to actually get them to do what I want them to do, because what I essentially want them to do is stay out of range so that they can't get into melee, but also continuously shoot at them. You know, I want to kite them around. If you've ever played like an ADC in League, that's basically what I want to do with them. You can toggle skirmishing onto them so that they'll stay out of range of stuff on their own. Sometimes it works better than other times. In the newer Total War games, I prefer to micro that sort of thing and control them myself, but, you know, it works. I don't have any in this battle, though. Like I said, I just have provincial cavalry, but it's probably something that I should do to upgrade and revise this army. But, like, visually speaking, even though this is a pretty old game, I love the way that the battles actually look with all the smoke coming off of the line troops whenever they fire. And I would really like to get some of the like 40 unit battles going and maybe up the unit counts. I've been playing with ultra-sized units. Admittedly, the units in this battle, because they're more elite, have lower unit counts. So, for example, some of the militias can have almost 300 soldiers in a unit. My standard line troops usually have like 260, my elite line usually have like 240, and these guys being elite grenadiers are down at like 200. I think normal grenadiers are probably somewhere in the 220 to like 240 mark, and cavalry are usually somewhere between like 80 and like 120, depending on what they are and how they're armed and all that. But I know that you can also turn up unit counts and get some, you know, really impressive looking battles. So I would like to mess around with that. I really enjoy the whole like 17, well actually even earlier than that, really like 1400 to like 1900, give or take, for like tactical battles. It's kind of a niche that isn't really represented that well these days, but it's really interesting. I know when I was playing this as a kid, I probably didn't appreciate, because, you know, I've had Empire since it came out, back in, like, 2009 or 10 or whatever, but I probably didn't appreciate as much then the strategy behind formation marching and moving them around. There's a lot of really interesting things you can do just with how you move, how you line up your troops, and all of that. I'm pretty sure in the base game you have to research fire by rank, so traditionally at the beginning of the 1700s I'd always line up my guys in really thin lines. The problem with really thin lines is that they don't respond well to melee, so if they get charged, they get into trouble. So, like, some of the more micro-intensive things you can get into in this game, you'll notice I have pretty long, like, usually 3 deep formations when I'm defending. The thing is, when I'm maneuvering and I want to pursue or when I want to attack, generally I don't run them this wide. This is just specifically good for me for defending and when the enemy's coming to me. Whenever I start pursuing my enemies, I usually condense them down because it's easier to maneuver without getting units in front of other units. Because remember, these guys are firing like walls of lead, and I have cannons firing like canister shots and cannonballs that'll just like scythe through people, right? So if I need to maneuver around them because I want to encircle enemy units and hit them from multiple angles and, you know, get them to panic or whatever, it's a lot easier for me to move a formation that's like 4 deep or 5 deep and less wide, because they're not going to be in front of each other as much. And then I can always spread them out if I need to make like a firing line or whatever, but when I'm defending and I don't need to move a whole lot, I generally have been keeping my troops in like longer, thinner formations, except for maybe when I'm expecting a charge or whatever. But yeah, I find the whole maneuver warfare of the time period extremely interesting. Part of that probably comes from me playing like Warhammer Fantasy on the tabletop. I think that's actually probably where I first started getting an appreciation for how like block unit formations moved and how like parade movement works. Because you could literally block out units from doing things, and you could, like, there's a whole economy basically to efficiently using your ability to move, because, you know, a unit might be able to move like 6 inches or 10 inches or whatever on a tabletop, right? But that includes like wheeling, which is, you know, like holding a corner in place and turning the formation and whatnot to get around things. And so, you know, the more you need to turn the formation, the more movement you're wasting and using up, and especially when you need to charge things. It's a little bit complex. It's not really that complex, but it's really interesting. I guess closing this out, ideally what I really want to see from a Total War game, because we've had a lot of Warhammer Total War lately. We've had 3 Kingdoms. I've heard talk of like another 3 Kingdoms game or maybe another Shogun game. I think if I could get anything that I wanted from a Total War game in the not so far off future, I would love to get like Empire 2. You know, I know the mod's called Empire 2, but like actually Empire 2. But I would like to get it where it takes place from 1800 to 1899, because I think there's a lot of really cool changes to warfare that come along in that period with like equipment and how battles are fought, because you can start the century with still having units with standard muskets. You can then go to like rifled muskets, you can go to mini balls, you can go to breech loading guns, you can go to revolvers and repeaters and bolt action rifles, and close out the century with things like Gatling guns, like early iterations of self-loading weapons, the adoption of trench warfare, and have units that go from being strict line formation to more loose skirmishing formations to, you know, units that fight in trenches and whatnot. I just think it could be really interesting. Especially because I also want to see how like railroads and whatnot can interact with this style of game. So yeah, basically, if I was designing a new Total War game, that's what I would make it. I would also put it on a worldwide map, because in that time period, there's so much potential for interesting conflicts, whether you're in the Americas, both North and South America, whether it's in Europe, because you have the Napoleonic Wars going on in Europe. I think towards the end of the century you have the Carlist Wars, or Carlist War. You've got all of the conflict in colonial Africa. You could definitely make something happen out in East Asia or in Russia, or like alt history, having things going on with Australia. I just think it would be really cool. That, and I also would really like them to bring back the actual naval conflict, where you get to command the ships and whatnot, because for as many advances as there are with land forces, there are probably just as many, if not more, major upgrades that happen in the navies. And even though the naval combat in Total War has been kind of shit, getting the naval combat from Empire back, I don't think would be a bad thing. I think of all of the naval iterations, I probably enjoyed it the most in, like, Empire and Napoleon. Whereas, I think things that came later, like Rome and whatnot, I just don't think that they put enough into developing the naval combat. But, yeah, enjoy the rest of the battle. This is a glorious Prussian victory over the Austrians. As per usual, get out there, kick ass, take names, and win your games.